Yeah. So no matter what I'm doing, I want to make sure that I'm not biting off more than I can chew. Right. And I think that many of us, we have an idea of something we want to do and we just kind of go for it, which there's a lot to be said for that. That's better than the person who sits back and just strategizes for the next 20 years over this idea that they have. Right. It's better to
Yeah.
jump into it. But I think the first step that all of us has to take is we have to take inventory of what we're currently doing or where we're currently at. So we have to actually sit down. I mean, by take inventory, I like doing this with actual note cards or sticky notes, or if you're watching the video, there's 3 whiteboards behind me. So I like to make sure I actually physically write this out. And I'll sit down, I'll just look at my life and say, okay, what's everything I'm doing? Another great way to do this, a great practice, is to use your phone and just make sure you have that notepad on your phone open. And for a week, just log everything you do. Anytime you're doing something like, okay, I do this every Thursday, I do this, I do that, all the little things even. And then sit down and say, okay, how much time do I actually have left every day for this new endeavor that I want to try to do, this new goal that I want to achieve? Can I actually do it with everything I have here? We're going to find that usually the answer is no. We use all of our time. You live all 24 hours every day, right? I mean, you're alive for every second of that 24 hours.
Yes.
And the truth is, we're filling it with something, right?
So
Well, I'm
far.
glad you knew the answer. That I was concerned.
Yeah. So far we're hitting it.
Right? But so the thing is, we fill all that time, and not necessarily bad things. And if you have the time, you're going to use it. But what we have to do is say, okay, here's the new goal I want to do. I imagine that if I want to achieve this, it's going to take, you have to backtrack and say, on average, I have to work an hour a week for, I don't know, 10 weeks, or an hour a day for 10 weeks. You have to look at your time and say, okay, what can I remove to make room for this? So taking inventory, once again, is what can I actually get rid of to make time for this? And it's a very simple act. There's not a lot to it. But if you're saying, okay, I'm watching 3 hours of Netflix after work every day, I could cut it down to 2, and then I could use that extra hour to work on this, because I think it's going to take me one day for, or 1 hour a day for 10 weeks or whatever it is, to actually achieve this goal. Then you can actually do that sort of thing. But it all starts from a place of taking inventory. I believe without doing that, it's going to be really hard to achieve anything, because you don't actually know where the time is going, and it's always just going to be a back burner idea. And I believe this to be true, Wayne. I've seen a lot of people who have great, I'm talking brilliant ideas. They start it and they never finish it. And maybe they'll start something else and never finish it. But it all comes back to the fact that they're like, I'm just so busy, it's going to be too much to do. But in reality, I don't know that that's always true. I mean, maybe sometimes it is, but normally I'd say that if you just sit down and really think about what you're doing with your time, you might have more than you think. And if you properly manage it and batch it correctly, you could actually achieve this goal that you have.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right, Alex. And I have seen that, because even law enforcement officers, they'll be like, hey, I want to do this. And sometimes it's not business. Some people it is, it's businesses, side hustles, whatever. But for others, it's like, well, I just want to accomplish this or get that thing done. And
Yeah.
then they're like, well, with shift work, I've got no time. And yet we
Mhm.
never take the time to account for where, like you said, we all have 24 hours. You're using it. I mean, provided you're listening to this podcast, you've been using your 24 hours. So
Right.
what are you using it on? I think that's brilliant.